Help us keep the Product Porch lights on by giving at patreon.com/theproductporch. Please review the podcast on your favorite platform. Your reviews help new listeners discover us. Thanks. Engineers seem to have this soft skill of being able to be alone, looking at a screen and typing code.
Yesterday, I was 10 hours sitting in a room just training an AI model.
Welcome to the Product Porch. I'm Ghali. Today, Todd and I are excited to have Claudia Saleh with us to talk about the soft skills that are necessary to be a successful product leader. Now, settle in, folks, because on the Product Porch, every topic is a product topic.
Every time, just to make me giggle at the start of every one of our podcasts.
Come on, you got to reference Wayne's World.
Hey, it's good to see you, Joe. It's great to be on the porch again.
I'm looking forward to tonight, Todd. I'm looking forward to today, just like the chill, and we got ourselves a guest star. We have a guest joining us. You want to introduce her?
Yeah, we have our good friend Claudia Saleh joining us on the porch. Claudia, good to see you.
Good to see you guys. I'm so excited to be here today.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about Claudia. Claudia is a lead product manager at Disney. Almost 20 years ago, she traded the laid-back beaches and sunny Rio de Janeiro in Brazil for the fast-paced international flair of Washington, D.C. I think if I was you, I would turn around and go right back to Brazil. That sounds a lot nicer than DC as someone who lives only a few hours away. But then she made the move to software engineering into product. A decade later, she relocated with her husband and 2 kids to Orlando, where she ended up joining Disney.
Yes.
She is, when she's not strategizing about the latest technologies at Disney's, she can be found traveling, writing, speaking about her favorite subjects, AI, product, travel, and Disney. So welcome to the porch, Claudia.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm super excited to be here today. And I guess we were having a conversation the other day talking about soft skills, right? I think soft skills are some of the most important skills that the product managers need to have because we work with people all the time, right? So those are the skills that really, really will make a difference as a product manager. So I think we are talking about here like communication, right? Can you guys help me out? Think about some other soft skills there.
Negotiation.
Storytelling.
I know, especially being at Disney. We love storytelling at Disney. So let's see what else. Problem solving, right? So we need to be very good at that. That's what we do almost all day, right?
Something Joe talks about all the time, which I think is huge, is being able to read a room.
Emotional intelligence.
Having that emotional intelligence.
That's right. That is very, very important. And I think something that we always talk about, like as product managers, like empathy, right? So we need to 100%. Empathize with our users. So what do you think? Do we think that this all can be taught, can be developed?
I love this topic. Because it's funny, I have a friend of mine who used to always say, it's ironic that we call them soft skills because they're some of the hardest things to develop and be great at.
Oh, so profound.
And I think that's true because I think of like something technical that most of us have experienced, like learning how to ride a bike, right? There's really ultimately one way to ride the bike. You learn how to push the pedals, you learn how to, use the brake, you get the balance. Once you got it down, you got it down. I think a lot of the technical skills we leverage in our job, I mean, they're more difficult than riding a bike, but they're similar in that way, right? You learn the processes, learn the steps, learn the techniques, and then you just do it. Where soft skills don't always have that. They don't always have an instruction book that go with them.
But I also think some people are just, I don't know if I'm using the right word, like innately skilled at performing certain tasks, or things just come naturally to them, right? Mm-hmm. Like the ability to read a room, or the ability to tell a story, or to be a good communicator, or be charismatic. Like I think you can learn how to do those things, but I think some people just are, I don't say born with it, but it comes more naturally to them, right? It doesn't require like digging deep.
One of the things that, when we were chatting earlier, you were talking about that the soft skills that can be taught depend on the situation. What are some of those differences? What, when you say it depends, like what does that depend on?
Yeah, I think it will depend on what kind of environment you are to start with, right? And then what's your level as a product manager, right? So I think when you are like a junior product manager, some of the skills that you need as a leader are very different, right? So I think you
Right.
need to be thinking about that too, because I would say, sometimes that when you are starting, you don't need to go talk to executives like you would go as a leader, right? So you need to develop those like storytelling, that communication that is very, very important, right? And I think as a junior, of course, you're gonna have a lot more like leverage, right? So like people will not expect that much from you. So you can actually, tag along to someone that is really good at it and learn by watching, right? So I think that's a
Yes.
good opportunity. But you're like mid-career, so you need to actually like step up your game, because if you want to move, you need to be, if it's not your innate quality, you need to really work hard on those.
You just called out an important soft skill as well. You mentioned learning,
Yes.
especially now. I think that's a soft skill that applies your entire career, but especially early on. Like I tell my children this all the time about school, because sometimes they'll be learning something that they're not interested in and they're very frustrated. Why do I do this, Dad? And I remind them, like, right now you're learning how to learn. And that is a very valuable skill. And when you come into something new, Claudia, you've mentioned before that people in product have often had a pre-existing career before they ever got to product management. And
That's
so
right.
you're kind of in this place where you come into product management and you go, well, now what? I'm a product manager. What does that mean? What do I do? And you have to be able to very quickly learn the skill set, learn the things you're going to need to be effective.
Yeah, I would add to that. I think that's where humility comes into play. Like having that humility, like early on, knowing that you don't know everything and that you need to just, you know, shut your yapper and listen and watch. I mean, I had when I worked in travel, right? I was in travel for 11 years. I had a boss named Ray, and this guy was just charismatic. He could talk to anyone. He was calm. He never got emotional. And, I was working in Las Vegas with a large hotel chain, and he would deal with these hotel managers who are very squirrely and prickly. And I would just watch him in our meetings and in amazement. Like he never got his feathers ruffled. He just was
Wow.
very thoughtful and calm. And, sometimes I didn't agree with him, but he never got frazzled in front of them. And I learned a lot by that, because I think if I were put in his situation, I would have been like, why don't you agree with me? I'm right. You're wrong. Right. I think like someone told me even earlier, tag along with that guy, watch him, learn from him. There's a lot of like his people, like when he talks, people listen, and you want to be in a position like that to exert influence when you get older. And they were right.
Having someone as a role model, like, or a mentor, right? I
Yeah,
think that's one of the best ways to learn. And as you said, you're talking about the humility. And I think that is important not only when you're starting, but actually when, I mean, we are in a field that changes all the time, right? So we are right now going through one of like the biggest changes, right? And
totally.
then have that humility to say, like, I don't know everything and I have to open myself to,
Yes.
continue learning. That continuous learning, it's a very, very important, like, I don't know if it's skill, but like more like a mindset. You need to be into that continuous learning or you are in the wrong profession, right?
Totally.
Yeah. And I love where you kicked us off with the context early on in your career. Here are some things that you need to be successful. We're talking about learning and humility. I have an idea. Maybe we could pick this up. This might be fun kind of game for us to play together. What if we did that in the product manager career development? We're just starting as you're just getting your first product role. And we just shared some things that we have found when we were first starting that were important soft skills, maybe that we had or that we noticed in others. And then we could follow that by how do you acquire them? Can you acquire them? And if so, how? And let's just keep going through that career journey, because I think that could be really helpful. So we already started with the you just started in product management. So I'll kick that question to you two. We talked about learning, we talked about humility. Are there any other skills that you've noticed with someone who just started with product, or something that you had when you started off? Any soft skills that were really important at that stage?
Yeah, I think I came from software development, right? So I was like a software engineer. And
Mm.
and to me, being able to speak to them, like understand like the pains of the software engineers, was one thing that really helped me out in the beginning, because they were like very skeptical. It's like, who is this product management person that is coming here to talk to me, and she doesn't know a thing about, what I'm trying to do. And I would sit down with them and it's like, hey, I understand your pain. I've been in your shoes.
I was jealous of new product managers like you, because that was something I didn't innately possess. That empathy for engineers, didn't understand them. I made a lot of mistakes with engineers early on because I didn't know. One of the things was I really thought I was supposed to have all the answers.
Oh, totally.
And so because of that, I was doing a lot of dictating of the what and some dictating of the how, and not allowing that engineering team to be able to flex their muscle, their ideation muscle, because I was telling them what to do. And I really saw them as a delivery mechanism.
Mhm.
It took me a few months to realize that is not the value of the engineering team. And I was actually making their life worse.
Yeah. When you bring them early on, I think like, today it's like I involve them as early as possible, because,
Cheers
they
to
can
that.
sometimes bring some insights that we didn't think about it.
Claudia, I love that, because, we talk so much about like product management is a team sport. I got one that I'm going to challenge on whether or not you can teach it. And that is the skill of being adaptive, being able to roll with the punches, right? Especially if you're coming from an environment where it's very black and white, where it's like you have a beginning date and an end date, and success is whether or not I achieve that particular outcome. So can you roll with it? Can you roll with changes midstream? Can you roll with changing requirements? Can you roll with changing scope? Like how easy, like, are you going to get flustered, or are you going to roll with it? Right? Knowing that product management is gray. It isn't so black and white. And I think some people struggle with that. Some people like things black and white.
It's true.
Versus some people, and I've gotten grief for this on a certain podcast that I know, right? Where we talk about, like swimming in the gray, like, that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
I challenge.
You have to embrace it.
You've got to embrace
it.
Embrace the gray.
Was that natural for you? Was that natural for you, Claudia? Or was that a soft skill you had to learn?
Well, we need to pick another one that is hard for me, but like this one, like the change, like I moved from Rio to Washington, D.C. So,
That's right.
Change is right there. So change is my life.
That's funny. I tend to be a rigid planner. So like some of that adaptability. So when you said like, is this one that you can learn? I think you can learn it. I wouldn't say that I'm naturally flexible, that's a natural skill set that came up to me early. One of the things I think is important there is, first off, the recognition. There is no perfection, and you're not going to be perfect. And to set the goal, you have to set the goal differently. It's a reframing. So for me, as first-time product manager, coming from being a director of marketing and very used to running campaigns and projects, and then coming into a space where it was not as clear, much more fuzzy. I think one of the things I had to learn was I'm not being evaluated, and products should not be evaluated based on how well they predict what they're going to do and then do that thing.
So you touched something very important there, the self-awareness, right? So you need to be self-aware of your shortcomings, right? The things that you are not. So I think that's the first thing. And we should have like a task, right? To see like, what are we good at? What are we not good at? And then we then, start developing the things that we are not good at.
Yeah. And that comes with that humility we mentioned earlier, right? So because I'll say this, like a lot of that awareness that I gained when I started in product management of the things I was doing wrong usually came from others. And I don't mean like bluntly someone saying, Todd, you stink at this engineering empathy thing. Like there wasn't things like that, but it was just when I get feedback that there was an opportunity to improve. Like there's always that choice to listen and accept that, or to just disagree and close yourself off to that feedback.
That's right. Yeah. And I'll tell you something that I was not very good at. So I had to develop like communication skills. As I said, I mentioned, right? I was like super afraid, especially when I moved from Rio to here. I thought that I knew how to, speak English, and and then when you get here, and it's another level, right? And I used to do like presentations about, even at the World Bank, that most people like English is their second language, and that was okay. And then the time that I moved to like another company, and that was like 100% like Americans in there. And I found out that, I was like very blunt, like, and people did not appreciate that. And it mostly was because, English was not my first language. So I had to develop and I had to learn a lot, how to communicate better, how to communicate in different ways. If I'm talking to the business, to the customers, or to the technical people. So I had to develop that awareness that you need different ways and different styles to communicate with different people. So that is probably one area that I had to work really, really hard.
That's got to be hard. I could see how you might be more direct than you're intending, because you just don't have all the words and the vocabulary.
That's right.
I speak some Spanish, and I find myself like that in Spanish sometimes. I'm like, I'm sure I just said that in about the rudest way I could say it, because those are the string of words that I can put together. So I can't even imagine trying to do business. I could not even begin to try to do business in Spanish. That would be awful. Can I ask though? I love that you talked about the difference in communication as well between the business and then the technical side and this communication. What are some of those differences that you've learned that maybe we're still, I guess, in the early career stage. So what should we be cognizant about when we're thinking about, okay, how we talk business to the business side versus how we talk to the technical side? What are some differences that stand out for you?
Yeah, I think a lot of them has a lot of the delivery. I mean, the message usually is the same, right? But then you have to change, especially like you're going to talk to an executive. They don't have a lot of time. So you need to be very good at like summarizing, right? Your thoughts and clearly articulating the why behind what you're doing. So, and then probably when you are talking to the technical folks, you need to tell a little bit more of a story so they understand what do they need to do, right? So I think it's like the message is one at the end. At the end of the day, it's like you have that core message, but you have to tailor your delivery depending on who you are talking to.
That's a great point. And I have a follow-up to that. When you were first doing presentations for some of that more senior leadership, executive leadership, did you practice or how did you prepare for those kind of conversations?
I had very bad presentation skills. I have to say that. It was, I look at my, I think back at some of my presentations and I was like, oh my God, that was like horrible, right? So there was like no, and it was something that I actually started, like I took some courses, I read some books, and
Smart.
and I'm always, trying to find like better ways to tell the story. So it comes like the whole storytelling, right? And then the structure and how do you make it better? I think we were talking about like this presentation that I did very recently at one of the conferences at Disney. Even though you are talking about technical things, you need to find like that hook that will, touch the emotions of people. So for this presentation during the conference, I was just back from Alaska, from a cruise in Alaska. And I said, it was a presentation for Disney. So I said, I just put this picture of the big ship in there. And I was talking about how afraid I was of bears. In Alaska, we have signs everywhere, like,
Oh my
beware of the
gosh.
bear. What do you do for the bears? And I'm like, I'm terrified of bears. And I love the teddy bears, the fluffy ones, but I was terrified. And then it didn't help me out, right? So I was seeing all those signs everywhere. It's like it's gonna be like a bear is gonna jump on me right here. I survived the bears in Alaska, but I got back home and I was terrified of my inbox. My inbox had thousands of emails, and I was terrified. And then the one thing that I was trying to convey is like, I was using a new AI tool to help me manage that inbox. It's funny that right now I meet people, and I actually had to do the same presentation about like 20 times now at Disney in different groups. And everybody remembered the story about the bear and about how terrified I was of my inbox when I came back. So it was, something that stuck. But I had to develop it because I was really, really bad. I was like, giving these very dry technical presentations all about, lots of stats. It was horrible.
That's a good transition into like becoming a senior product manager. Because I think as you become more senior, those presentation skills become a lot more important.
Like I totally agree. Like from a soft skill perspective, you can learn how to do well, like public speaking. We had our, my first job, our president, our CEO, John, was a developer, and he was a lousy communicator. He was a lousy public speaker. Yeah, he was just shy and nervous, and he had his hands in front of his face, and like he just didn't realize how he was using his hands and his eye contact, everything. And it was very demotivating when you would watch him speak, and someone gave him some feedback, and they sent him away. Like not sent him away, but I sent him to some classes, and within a year, he was pretty good. Like you would never know that this was a guy that struggled with public speaking. So I think that's definitely something. Like I think they have Toastmasters, right? Those are some places where you can go and get some of those skills. But I think that's definitely a skill you can practice and get better at over time. It's just you need repetition.
You know what I did with my son? My son was like very, very shy. We actually put him through theater. So I said to him, it's like, if you get nothing from this time in theater, is your ability to, speak in public, and don't be shy, and be able to articulate things and be able to improv. I mean, the improv classes that they had was like amazing. And I said, you don't have to suffer like I did, right? I think if you have kids, put them in theater or something that can help them develop. And if you are already mid-career, join some, Toastmasters or even like a theater class. I think they have for adults an improv class. I think is one of those that help you out.
What's interesting about that is, we talked about how coming from engineering, you can have some skills where you naturally understand the engineers already. I have an idea for a mini game. We're going to break our journey for a second, play a mini game. I'm going to throw out different career backgrounds that people come from into product management. And I'd love to hear from you, Claudia, you, Joe, what are like maybe soft skills that might come from that experience that you can leverage in product management? You guys ready for this? I didn't prepare you at all for this.
Yeah, you did not. But yeah, let's do it. Improv.
All right, we'll start easy. Okay, marketing.
If you are in marketing, you are a good communicator, right? You have to communicate through your campaigns, whatever you are doing. So it's a head start.
Okay, what if you come from a design background?
I think the design needs to have. They usually have this empathy already innate to a lot of the designers, because the things that they need to think about, and most of the designers that I met are very empathetic, because they need to create something for someone and they need to listen to those people, so they are used to those.
Yeah, I would agree. How about project management?
I think there's like process, right? Like part of product management is like the product life cycle and understanding that things have a process, right? I wouldn't say it's not linear because it's definitely product management is not linear, but understanding like steps and being able to communicate it. But I'll also talk about, I just thought of this in project management. You have to deal with stakeholders and provide status updates. And sometimes you have to provide status updates you don't want to provide. Trade-offs and negotiation. Maybe you're trying to source resources and perhaps you need to get more resources to get your project done on time, or be able to communicate or negotiate or even talk about trade-offs. So, I know a few project managers that turned out to be pretty decent product managers because of those skills they gained as project leaders.
All right, so now I'm going to try something weird. Now we're going to go a little funky. So Claudia gave me this idea when she started talking about theater and how they could help with presentation skills. And I thought about my own theater background. So I want you to think about, rather than just giving you some, think about things outside of your career and soft skills that you developed there that have helped with your product management career. I'll start while your wheels are turning, but I'll share my theater experience. So I did dinner theater. I did an improv dinner theater show where I was in character the entire night. Part of it was scripted. The rest was all improv. And that
is amazing. That prepared you for product management.
It really does. There's a lot of just being on your feet and having to dance in the moment that I learned from being on that. But I'll tell you one of the things that was really direct, that came directly from that. And that was being able to read an audience. Like I had to be really good at because not every audience is different. I would go to tables. You go to tables. Not every table is the same. They don't all react the same. They don't all act the same. And you had to get really good at going. Claudia talked about talking to executives versus talking to engineering team versus talking to your marketing team or sales or whatever that is. I had to get really good at going to the table and very quickly reading, okay, what are they interested in? What they seem to enjoy? And how do I help them have a good time here? And I use that in my product management career all the time. Anyway, do you guys have anything that came to mind from outside your career?
Yeah, so I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys, but I was a travel writer for about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And that was while I was a product manager at the old bank. Well, I was a software engineer. So basically, when you work as a consultant for the World Bank, you can only work 150 days a year. So, and I said, what am I going to do with the rest of my days? I mean, I cannot just do nothing, right? So because I worked in a media company in Brazil, and I had some people that worked in magazines, I said, hey, I'm leaving the US. So do you guys need, anything? And I know that they always send people, to, openings of new attractions at Disney and things like that. So it's like, so I can start, writing about travel. And I was a decent writer because, it was one of the things that I thought that I would be when I grow up was a journalist, right? So for 10 years, I had this career as a travel writer. And it was probably one of the things that, helped me the most. Because a lot of the things that you need as a product manager is like the same things that you need as a travel journalist, right? So you need to deal with a lot of uncertainty, and you need to be very good at doing those plannings to, be on time for this and, coordinate different things and coordinate among different people. And the deadlines for, you have a magazine that they don't have. You cannot send you a text the next day because the magazine is already going to be printed. So you have to become very good at some of these skills. And I think that's one that really helped me out. And I think almost everything that you do, you can draw parallels, right? So
totally.
And then try to find these strengths that you have, not only on your career, but also in your hobbies, right? Because
totally.
Things that you can actually bring to the professions. I think it's a very welcoming path, the product manager, because there are needs for, all types of people.
Well, it reminds me of the first presentation I ever did. I just leaned in on my storytelling ability because I came from creative media. And I did a whole presentation using Tombstone, which is a movie that I like a lot. And I did a presentation for the editor-in-chief of the Los Angeles Times using a tombstone metaphor, which many people might think is really risky. He loved it. He just ate it up. And it made me feel really good coming out of that room. But that reminder of like, play to your strengths. Go lean on your strength and leverage that. I mean, you already have it. Let's do one more step in the career. So we talked about early on, we talked about more mid-career. You have to start developing those presentation skills, those storytelling skills. Now let's take that point where you're leading other product managers now. You're leading other product managers in your role. What are some soft skills that really become important when we get to that stage of our career?
I think you need to start, because when we are just like an individual contributor, so you are focusing on that one thing, right? In that one product. When you become a leader, you need to be aware of the context. So you need to like broaden a little bit more your scope, right? Yeah. So you need to start like having the vision of the whole, right? Instead of the just the little piece that you are responsible for. Joe is thinking about something there.
Yeah, Todd.
I can see his wheels start.
Yeah, no, like the hamster wheels flying around here. I don't think it's one skill. I think it's the ability to melt those skills. Like, it's the constant, like, it's not just being really good at empathy or really good at presentations I think it's being able to flex in all those different areas in a moment's notice. That's where like the product leadership soft skills, it's like being able to like react and change and thrash in a way where you can kind of navigate some of the complexities that your environment may be providing to you. I don't know that that's something you can learn. Like some people are just better at it than others. You can do it, but I think some people innately are better at that, like that flex, that constant flex.
So you're
as
saying,
a product leader.
You're saying knowing when to use each skill, knowing how to communicate in each moment.
Yeah.
That's something that's really challenging to learn.
Yeah. And it's not like, oh, I got to do this, or it's like, it just comes naturally. Like you're reacting. And like into Claudia's point, sometimes it's just the series of all the experiences that you have in your lifetime.
Exactly.
Equip you to handle certain situations better than others.
Yeah. But that's why not everyone was born to be a leader, right? So some people get into that position and they are not good at it, right?
Correct.
So, and I think that's the distinction right there. But I think I was, while you were talking there, I thought about one thing that it's probably even more critical at that level is like as a soft skill is like the decision making, right? Because at this point, you need to be like that balance of, data, intuition, stakeholder input under pressure, all of this. You have to put that all in the mix and be very good at the decision making to be a good leader, right? Because you can be a leader, but to be a good leader, you need to be very good at it.
And what's interesting about that one is, first off, I completely agree. It's knowing when you're making the decision versus when you allow someone else to make the decision.
Yeah.
Versus when you're seeking some consensus, and other times when they don't have root consensus, like you said, and then balancing when we have quantitative data versus we don't. We got to leverage some intuition. It is a balance. That one I find interesting because, first off, again, another lifelong skill. Like you have to learn, like lifelong learning. I don't think that, maybe others do. I don't know that I'll ever reach a point where I'm just perfect at decision making. But I have found that it's interesting in the moment in meetings, it almost feels like I'm pulling from a library because I've been in so many decision-making moments now at this point in my career, that there are times where I feel like I'm almost grabbing a book from the library and going, okay, that's right. That's right. That's how I did it last time. This is a wait and let them make the decision moment. Or, oh wait, this is a good enough. We got to go now decision point. Like, it's almost relying on all these different decisions that I've made throughout my career that have taught me how to make decisions at least as well as I do today.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I think this is something that only experience brings, right? You cannot teach that in product school, right?
Correct.
So you can mention it, but then you need those experiences. We need those fails to be able to have the lessons, right?
Okay, I'm glad that you pointed that out, Claudia, because it reminded me of a conversation I was having today with a new CTO. And I was telling him that I really liked his approach. I was there. I got to join a meeting and see him present to the development team for the first time, to see him get to meet them for the first time. And the beats of this meeting just went so perfectly. He presented himself. He presented his expertise, but in a way that didn't seem showy or like he's bragging. He presented humility in demonstrating like the mistakes he's made in his past. He asked the right questions. He built comfort in the room, built trust. All of this just really, it was like a playbook. Like, it could have written down all the beats and been like, this is exactly how you meet a new team. So later when we were meeting one-on-one, I said, hey, you did a fantastic job. I thought you really nailed that first meeting. And he told me, he's like, that was built on a lot of bad meetings. He's like, I have met a lot of teams for the first time. I've made a lot of mistakes. And that's how I got to this point. And it's like you said, Claudia, it's the fails.
So can I go all the way back then, Todd? The soft skill early on, the one we didn't mention, you've got to be a little bit of a risk taker. Some people innately don't like to take risks.
It's true.
Yeah, I think that is a very, very difficult one, because it's probably like the sum of the life of the person. Because I have to say here, like, my husband is super averse, risk averse. We are like completely the opposite. Like, took me 5 years to convince him just to move from DC to Florida. So it's a hard one. You know
what's funny about that? If you called this a soft skill, this is a weird soft skill, but if you called it a soft skill, engineers seem to have this soft skill of being able to be alone by themselves with their keyboard, looking at a screen and typing code. I do not possess that soft skill. I just do not. Like, it kind of, I'm just saying I can relate to this. And if you said, Todd, why can't you be an engineer? Well, that's why. That is a required soft skill. You got to be able to sit in a room by yourself and just type away and be comfortable doing that. I am not.
I have to say.
Yeah, go ahead, Claudia. Sorry.
I was going to say, like, yesterday, I was 10 hours sitting in a room just training an AI model. Like, because it was actually my final test for, I'm doing a graduate school in AI machine learning.
Oh,
so I was there, but I was like so happy, like when everything was working and doing lines of code, lines of Python after lines of Python. I am super happy coding. So,
okay.
It's like not a lot of people look at me and think, that I'm that geek, but I love that.
So you have that soft skill. That's good. All right. So let's get each of our takeaways. Before we do, Claudia, first off, I know I speak for Joe when I say this. This has been fantastic.
You've done awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
You have some obvious. Oh yeah, we'll need you back on the porch. You have some obvious soft skills because you are so impressive, and you also are so humble, which is pretty amazing. I love the example. You didn't say this specifically, but just through sharing your life with us, it's obvious how willing you've been to just learn consistently throughout your career.
Cheers.
You're just constantly learning. That's such an example as someone who's so accomplished and still learning. Such an example to all of us. So I really appreciate that. Before we do our takeaways, I assume other people might enjoy you just as much as we do and want to connect with you. Where can they find you if they want to connect with you?
Well, LinkedIn, I'm there. So Claudia Saleh there, Claudia B Saleh, I think it's my my slash there. So I'll send you the one so you can put on the
In the show
description
notes.
there so people can follow me, and I'll be happy to connect. I love connecting with
Very
other product managers and learning.
That'd be great. All right, then let's talk about our takeaways. What's your key takeaway from this conversation?
When I grow up, I want to be like Claudia. That's my key takeaway. When I grow up, I want to be just like Claudia. Let's see. How many languages do you speak? You're both. You mentioned Python and AI machine learning and writing. Claudia, the world needs more Claudias. That's all I got to say. That's my key takeaway. The world needs more
You're
Claudia.
making me blush now, Joe. Good thing that they can't see us. My key takeaway, I love what you said about, taking risks, and the story that you shared about, doing this presentation. That was sometimes I think I play safe just because, especially like on the communications and presentations, I play safe. So I think that taking risks, and then we went all the way back, right? That you have to, I'm willing to take risks in a lot of things, but I'm very, I don't take a lot of risks like when there is a big stake at work, for instance. So I think that's, taking more risks there, and maybe it will pay off.
Well, my key takeaway from the conversation, it seems to have been a constant theme throughout, is you have to be, the only way you're going to ever develop any of these soft skills is to be open to learning, to be open to different people possess different abilities. There's some skills that I've acquired through my career simply from seeing other people and going, man, I wish I could be like them.
Yep.
Try to learn a little bit how to be like them. And so I think that's kind of a constant theme to this whole thing. If you're not open to that and looking for those opportunities, then you're not going to have that growth.
Yeah, that's great. And I think the conclusion for it all, like being a product manager, right? You don't need to be like the smartest person in the room, right? But you need to, like, I think one of the key soft skills that we need is like make sure that everyone is heard, right? And then everybody aligns in the same goals. So I think that's at the end of the day, all those soft skills needs to be moving towards that.
Yes. Well, this was super fun.
Yes,
this was awesome.
I love it.
You will always have a rocking chair at the porch, Claudia, with your name on it.
Oh, love that. I'll bring the drink to the porch.
Very good.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Thanks, Claudia.
Thank you for joining us on the Product Porch. We release new episodes every 2 weeks. You can also find us on LinkedIn for more content. We offer a special thank you to AJ and Jack Blaquiere for the music. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts of this podcast are their own and do not represent nor necessarily reflect those of their employer.